Hello and welcome everyone to Introduction to Photoshop Compositing Tutorial by me, Neil Vanderking. So today we are going to do some popcorn comping, and we're going to make a little poster that looks a little like this. And so this was born out of a picture that my brother took of his little puppy sitting in a popcorn box, and he said, "Hey, it'd be great, it'd be hilarious if you turned the popcorn into a popcorn." And then I just went crazy with it. So that's what we're going to do today. Make a little dog treat kind of poster. And so I've organized this into chapters. First we're going to organize and build. Then we'll set up our background. We've got some popcorn in there. Then we will cut out and mask that puppy, and then composite our new logo, our new popcorn onto that box, and then we will place everything in there, put our little taglines, and then we will finalize the image. Always the most important thing with a composite. All right. So first, organize and build. First thing we do, collect our images. So this, let's see here. We'll go to File and Open, and we can see here we have little popcorn that I found at Pixabay. And so just make sure that you record all the sources, and if there's copyright, make sure that's included. Okay, so we're going to open our Photoshop, make sure it's updated. I'm using the most updated Photoshop, so I just want to make sure your interface looks the same as mine, and we will create our document. So what we're going to do is, instead of opening, we're going to go create new. And what I want is to make this, you can see here, width at about 1,000. This poster is going to live on the web, so we want it to be as big and pixel perfect as it can. So we'll go with 1000 by 1300, just to maintain our nice rule of thirds. We'll leave the background contents white, and we can just call this popcorn comping for now. But you can rename that to your assignment name. All right, and we'll go create. And from here, this is where we go and file open and bring in all our assets. So here's the original picture, and we want our popcorn. And we'll open that up. And what I also have done is I've already gone and cut out that logo and created a new one, and I created it in an SVG format, so when we bring it in, we can bring it in at whatever size we want, which is excellent. So we'll bring that in nice and big, so we can comp it out later. Alright, so we'll go back to our new layer, and we will bring in our assets. So just like we always do, we can either copy paste, or we can move between tabs, or in a more advanced setting we can place embedded. But for now, just because this is an intro, we'll just copy or move between tabs. So I have my move tool, and I'll just literally click and drag this up to my new one, and then I'll hold shift as I let go, and you can see now, if I zoom out, how big an asset this is, which is excellent. A nice big file for us to be able to play around with and move to wherever we want it to be. Maybe we want just one big giant piece of popcorn, or whatever. I'll leave those details to you. Alright, and of course we want to rename our layers. I'll just name it Popcorn BG and move along. So we need our puppy next. So again, get our move tool, click and drag, and bring it in, hold down shift, and again we can see how big this asset is. Shift and Alt or Shift and Option to resize that down, and you can see actually that this was taken in a very low light setting by a cell phone that doesn't capture low light very well, so we'll have to do some fixing up, sharpen that image up. Alright, so again, rename our layers, and just to keep everything organized. Alright, so what's next? So we've arranged our layers and we've blocked in layout. Basically for now that'll be pretty good. Right now we don't actually need this background layer, so just to keep everything nice and clean, I will unlock it and just drag it down into that garbage can, just so I don't have too many extra layers that we don't need. Oh yeah, so the next one is to bring in the popcorn logo, so just click and drag that up again and hold down Shift, and it's saying, are you sure you want to do this? This has a different color profile, which is fine. Yes, of course, no problem. And bring that up onto the top layer and just resize it so we can see it. Actually, I will escape, because what I want to do when I'm resizing layers, especially because I might want to bring this back up, make it a large size, what I'm going to do is go over to the layer itself. First of all, obviously, rename it. Popcorn logo, and I'm going to right click on this and go over and say convert to smart object, and what that does is allow me to resize this up and down and not lose any pixel quality. Alright, let's bring that right down, and now we have all our assets and we're good to go. Alright, so chapter 2. So we're going to set up the background. So first, for this popcorn, I want to make sure that we'll just turn off our layer here. So we can see that our brightest light source is on our left, the puppy's right here. And so for this popcorn, you can see it's actually pretty good already that our light source is the same. But we can always tweak it if we need to. Make sure that that's pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good. I'll just move that over like that, just so we match up those two light sources. And what I also want to do is add filters or opacity to fade out that background, because I don't want too much contrast in here to take away from our foreground. So I'm going to go right up with my popcorn BG selected, go up to the adjustments panel, which is right beside properties, and here we have our options of hue saturation, color balance, brightness contrast, levels, all sorts of fun stuff. And I'm going to just go right over to brightness contrast and bring down that contrast quite a bit, and you can see how it just takes some of that color out. And maybe I'll adjust the brightness of it also just a little bit, and we can get to that more later once we bring in all our things, our pieces of the puzzle, and make it nice and beautiful. So what we're gonna do after that is add a layer mask to follow the logo circle. So you can see here on our, oh, there we go. So you can see here on, if I go File, Open, that we have this nice little border. And so if you look at this, we basically have our big logo here and this nice logo or border. So that's what I'm going to do here. Bring this up. Make sure we can see our popcorn nice and big. And we'll put it right up in the top corner. Maybe move it over so our spacing is nice and consistent. Again, you guys know I harp on that as much as possible. And maybe I'm going to bring this, make it a little smaller. And what I'll have to end up doing is masking out this top layer. So basically what I'm looking for here is the same spacing here, and here. And we're pretty good. So what I want to do is mask out this top. I also want to mask out my my O. However, I think that's in a later chapter. So let's do our background first, and what we're going to do is basically follow this border and make a mask around our on our popcorn layer. So I'm going to go down to that popcorn layer, and I'm going to just make a very simple, use the lasso tool to follow behind this border, and we have our mask. And now I can go to layer, layer mask, and hide selection. And so now you can see that I've created an opacity, basically an opacity mask or layer mask. And now I can actually add in a background. And so I'll just go, well, I'll go the easy way. Go up to layer, new fill layer, and solid color. And choose a nice sort of complementary to what we had, and hit OK. And of course I need that color fill layer underneath my popcorn. Alright, so we're getting there. So we have a BG. Well, you can use a gradient or solid. I chose a solid this time, and we can always add in more gradients later. Alright, so our background is basically set up or blocked in, and we'll move along. So on to the fun stuff. We'll use the quick selection tool to start cutting out our puppy in the box, and go on from there. So first of all, turn off all the layers I don't want, just to keep everything nice and clean. And I have my puppy layer selected. Going to move in a little closer just to use as much real estate as I can, and go get my quick selection tool. Alright, so I first just make sure everything's set up here. Sample all layers, defaults to plus. I have a 60 size brush, and then just sort of start very quickly filling that in. Great thing about the quick selection brush is, of course, it's quick, but it's not overly detailed. So we need to go in here and just tell it what we want, more or less, and then get in there with the details later. So again, we can see here we're going over, so maybe I'll use the left square bracket to make my cursor, my brush size smaller, and just go around using my space bar, of course, to go around here. And this is the kind of stuff where it's really fuzzy and really kind of not very clean. I know I'm going to want a nice clean solid box, so instead of fighting the quick selection tool, I'm just going to come in here and get my polygonal lasso tool and make a nice clean, oops, undo that. Always have to hit plus or minus if you're going to cut out. And then hit enter, and you can see it's cutting out all the bits that I don't want. And of course I need to add that in. So basically I'm deleting what I don't want and and adding in what I do. And just to keep this consistent, you can see the size here. This is sort of sitting in with the gigantic weight of this enormous puppy. It's kind of sinking into this carpet. So just to keep it consistent. And we will always do some sort of fixing at the end here, make sure it looks really nice and clean. And again, you can see the choppiness of this guy here, so and then minus. Oops, wrong way. Alright, so we have more or less a good one here. Just gonna get my regular lasso and make a little line here just to make it a little more organic. Again, we'll be hiding this kind of stuff once we clean this up. Alright, so just work your way around. You can see these nice soft fur hairs. On an image this blurry, we will lose some of this detail, but certainly we can use our refine brush to get some of those nice furry hairs back in here. Alright, so looking good. I have a pretty decent selection. Of course, it's not good enough for us, so what we want to do is refine and mask on those hairs. So having a selection and making sure you have a selection tool. You can see at the top here we don't have the ability to get to that select and mask option, so we need to go over to one of our tools and select one of those tools. Doesn't matter which one at this point, but now you'll see you'll get your select and mask options. So we click on that and we will get our dialog box. So mine, because of what I've used before, is now defaulting to having an overlay on it, but you can look at your cutout on all kinds of different backgrounds. Obviously the background that it's going to go on is important, but for now we just want to make sure our cutout is nice. And you can see, if you go to black and white, you can see the kind of craziness that starts to happen where we have all this extra detail. So just go get your lasso tool and using Alt or Option to minus, cut all that extra garbage out. So I like to go to overlay just so I can see a little more of the, get my zoom tool, just so I can see a little more of the hairs that are hiding there. So right now I have, this is the general quick selection tool, so right underneath that the refine edge brush tool that works some magic, and just sort of drag it along that edge and you'll start to see that Photoshop does its photo magic and sort of picks up and gets rid of the bits you want and the bits you don't. Absolutely magical stuff. And of course, the better quality image you have, the better this is going to work. The higher contrast, the shallower depth of field, all those will make this go that much smoother and cleaner. So again, this we're going to leave nice and sharp, and we're looking a little better. Seems like we might have a little bit of something going on here. Just go back to my marching ants. and I think we can deal with that for this sort of beginner course introduction. Alright, so now go back to my overlay, and what I also like to do is especially with this quick selection tool, it's never really perfect, so I like to just smooth it out, feather it out just a little bit, and maybe bring in that shift edge just a bit. So we just sort of giving it a taste, and then we click OK. And now we're basically back to where we were, with a nicer refined edge. And you can basically just go down to the Add Layer Mask button, click that, and you can see how good or bad a job we've done. So I think we can live with this. It's looking pretty good. Alright, we've got our popcorn. Of course, our puppy needs to be on top. And now we can sort of resize this to our heart's content. So what I'm going to do is turn this again into a smart object. So I'll just right click anywhere on this guy and go convert to smart object, and now you can see excuse me, our layer mask is hidden and everything is contained within that smart object. And now I can resize it basically to where he'll be covering up that O, and hit enter to accept that transformation. Alright, so we have it cut out. So we're going to add layer and clean up the box with the brush tool. So what that means is I'm going to go now back into this smart object. So by doing, and the way we do that is by double clicking in this and the way we do this is by clicking in this layer thumbnail, just double click, and now we've opened an entirely new document. You can see up at the top puppy.psb now. And now here again we basically have what we started with, which is our original with that layer mask. So now I'm going to go in and just sort of clean up all of this, all of these shadows, and brighten it up and make it look a little more designery, a little less like it was taken in a dark room. So what I want to do is go up to the bottom, or go down to the bottom, and create new layer. I'm just going to get my regular brush tool, and now we get these beautiful little illustrations, little animations telling us what we have. And so I'm going to just resize my brush, and what I want to do is go right to the mode where we have our blend mode, and I'm going to paint out all the dark bits here. So I'm going to go to color dodge. I'm going to maybe bring my opacity down just so I can have a little more leeway. Right click and make sure my hardness is down, and size is pretty good here, and just start painting it out. And of course it's doing that because I am painting with black. So I'm going to change that around, paint with white, and color that in a bit more. Make my brush a little better, a little bigger. And just kind of make it a little cleaner. And the great thing about adding a layer, where I'm going to call this box brush, is that if it's too much, I can always go and take the opacity down on this layer. And so this is where we started. This is what I painted in. And so somewhere in the middle lies a comfortable medium. Alright, and this is also where you can come back in and sort of check your edges here. And you can see I have this kind of outline that I don't like. So what I'm going to do is select not the layer itself, but the actual layer mask. Get my brush tool again, and now I have a foreground color of black. Get a small brush. Whoop. Get a small brush, very, very small, and start painting out. Oh, of course, I need to select normal brush mode. That's why. If a tool doesn't work the way you expect it to, just go back in your memory and think about what you last used it for. Because you may have changed some of those settings, like I just did, like the blend mode, or maybe your color isn't working. So always just check, oh, what did I just do? There we go. So I can live with that now. I'm just going to make my way around here. You can see this kind of not very good border, especially on this side. But the good thing is that we are comping it onto a darker background or something very similar in tone to this, so, or in hue anyway. Get my brush again, just to make sure that's a little nicer. Alright, so I can live with that. So the thing about PSBs and the smart objects that I've just changed is that I have to save this file and then close it. So I'm Control S or Command S and Control or Command W to close that, and it will have updated in here. Alright, so what's next? Add layer and clean up box with brush tools, what we just did, and then we turned it into a smart object. Alright, so we've masked the puppy. Let's move on. Alright, replacing the logo. So what we need to do is duplicate the logo and change the fill color. Okay, so now that we have updated our smart object, this is where I can see the kind of mistake I did, where I just painted in here, but I didn't apply that same mask. So let's go back into our puppy, so double click. So because this was on a white background, I couldn't see that I was just painting on this actual spot. So what I'm going to do is Control click my mask and go up to my new box brushed out layer and apply that exact same mask. Now when I save and quit out of here, I don't have that painted on garbage that I didn't want. Okay, so next what we're going to do is duplicate our logo, change our fill color, and what I think I'm actually going to do is apply this logo, our new logo, right inside our puppy. So I'm going to double click on there. I'm going to go back to our main guy here, and I'm just going to click and drag. Actually, what I'll do is get my move tool and click and drag this up to the puppy and hold down shift, and now it's in there. So basically I've just gone in here and copied this popcorn logo. I could have done that from one of our the original SVG, but just to make it more complicated, I put it there. So what I'm going to do is do this comping right inside here, resize it down to approximately what I need, and hit enter. And then of course what I need to do is get rid of what is already here. So let's see. So we need to remove the original logo with a pattern fill and a clone stamp. Alright. So you can do this. So you can see here I've set it up so that we set up this new logo all in place and then we remove the old one, which might be a good idea because then we can try and match the exact placement of the circle and the text. So first what I'm going to do is go up to my edit and go to perspective warp. So I'll click on that, and the first thing you need to do is draw a border over the thing you want to perspective warp. And what a good idea to do is just make sure it's as close to this this guy as possible, and just move in these borders just so we're on the outside of our guy. Hit enter, and then the second part is to actually maneuver it into place. And the great thing about having this popcorn box is that it already comes with perspective lines. So as long as we match that outer circle as much as we can, we'll get a pretty good you can see here now the circle is perfect pretty much, and of course our text, just because of based on how I designed it, is a little smaller, but that's okay. That's why we're going to completely erase what's behind there. So I've put my pieces where they want to be, and the second step in this perspective warp is to hit enter, or you can go up to the top here where it says disregard or go back, or you can hit the check mark and apply that. Alright, so now you can see it has a smart filter that is a perspective warp, so you can see that is easily turned on and off. And now I'm going to try to match the colors first, so let's do that. So we have our popcorn, and what I want to do is go to filter, and where do I want? Layer, filter. Okay. So our next step is to oh yeah, so I forgot to do this and change the fill color. So very easily we can click on layer styles. So click anywhere in that layer and just double click, and you get your layer style dialog box. And we can come down here to color overlay and click that, and right away it defaults to this crazy color, but we just click on that blue here and we get our color picker, and then we can just go and find something that's pretty close, and you can see how good a job that does of matching. So we'll click OK, and we want that at 100%, and there we go. So the next step is to match the noise level that we have here. You can see it's our SVG graphic looks really out of place here, so we need to add some noise. So we'll go up to filter, noise, and add noise, and we'll add just a little bit and see what that looks like. And then some blur, because our SVG is way too clear and crisp. So we'll just go with regular Gaussian, and that's way too much obviously. So just a little bit, just to get it sort of matching a little bit, and we the great thing about these, because this is a smart object, we can go back and tweak these as much as we want. The other thing to keep in mind is the order of your filters. So I have Gaussian, add noise, and then perspective. So if I click and drag Gaussian down, it will actually change dramatically the results that you get. So keep that in mind. And of course we can't really see it right now, but we will in a minute. I'm going to click on that noise just to maybe get some color noise in there. And I think, of course, I want to blur it first and then add noise. Anyway, let's get rid of the original one and then we'll be able to see a little better. So I'm going to turn off that popcorn logo for now. I'm going to go down one layer, and what I'm going to do now is just click new layer, and it's an empty layer, and I'm going to call it logo hiding, logo hider, logo hider. I'm just going to make up words. Logo hider. That's what I'm going to call it. Hopefully no one else has to figure out what that means if they ever open this PSD file. But what I know it means is that I'm going to get my my clone stamp tool, click on that, and how this works is, first of all, it just works like a regular brush. So first thing you need to do is make sure that, oh, there we go, that's what I was looking for, is hold down Alt or Option and you get the target. So I'm going to click that here, and the next thing you want to make sure of is that it's sampling all layers. Sometimes it'll just default to current. I want it to be on all, and I've made that target, and now you can see I can just start painting over that existing guy, and you can see how it's kept in line. So my target and my source are keeping in line, which is obviously not working properly. So I'm going to just go back to my history, and instead of it being aligned, right here it says aligned. If you unclick that and you click your target, now when I do it, every single time that I click and unclick, it'll go back to that original target spot, which is very convenient because then you can just make little tiny brush strokes and basically fill in everything nicely and quickly. You can always choose a new target spot to give you more brushing room. And I think we're doing pretty good here. There's some great noise going on in this layer, and it's working quite well. So if we now turn back on our logo, you can see what we're looking at. And if I turn off this Gaussian blur, I think it's a little too hard. I'm just going to bring that down a little bit, and it feels a little better now. I don't think this noise is doing much at all. Alright, so what I have realized is that trying to add noise after there's a color overlay layer style does not work. So what I'm going to do is open up that layer style, turn that color overlay off, however not before I choose this hex code. Turn that color overlay off and just select that layer and go edit and go right into this layer. So double click this guy, open it up, and fill with my new, with color, paste that guy in, and hit OK. So basically, instead of applying, and I have to hit save and close, instead of applying a layer style on this smart object that is a color overlay, it basically turns off any ability to see those little details like adding noise. So now we can see that I've added way too much, and I need to bring that way back, and it's starting to look a little more acceptable. So now if we zoom out, we're doing pretty good. Yeah, we can sort of see we're matching the similar blur levels and texture levels. So there we go. So we are still in this PSB. Again, save and close, and find our new one here. So there we go. We've got our popcorn comped. We replaced the logo, perspective warp, add filter and effect, so noise and blur, and we've removed our original logo. So because we had a good amount of space to use the clone stamp, we didn't need a pattern fill, but that's definitely an option if there's not enough space to do that. You could just select that entire area and then make a pattern out of one of those pieces. But I find the clone tool is a good go-to for that kind of stuff. Alright, so we've replaced the logo, and we'll move on to the next chapter. So this is chapter 5. We need to size, mask, and place our logo and text, and add layer mask to remove that letter O, add some drop shadow, and then we'll add in some tagline. So first things first, I want to not have this as a white or as a black text. I'm going to go ahead and make it white. Got to get rid of the top pieces here and get rid of the O as well. So what I'll do is dive right in, double click that smart object, and add in what I need, which is straight up just hit that new layer mask button so we have a nice full piece there. And what I'm going to do is get my lasso tool and cut out my O. So from here you can just go up to edit, fill, and then go to black, so that we've basically applied that right there. And we can do the same pretty much from here all the way around, so that we're selecting this top area. Again, edit, fill, which is Shift F5 as a shortcut. And so now if I save and close, you can see we've cut out the top pieces, and if I hide the puppy, we don't have the O there. But what I still need to do is make this white. So I'm going to double click in here. I have my layer selected. I'm going to I guess I could add in a layer style in here. So I'm going to double click, because this works so easily and so nicely. Add in a layer style, make it white, click OK, save and close, and now we've got our nice overlay, nice text. And so what we want to do now is add in drop shadow, just to have it feeling like it's popping off the page a bit. So double click to add, get that layer style dialog box and go down to drop shadow, and you can see right away we get this really dark one sitting on hard light. So I want to kind of match this blue, so I can just go and select it and get my color picker and select it there. Maybe I want it on normal just to see how it looks. And of course I want to match the angle of our light, just like we always do here. And I like to have my drop shadows nice and clean. So we start there, and then we'll bring back our opacity. Just a little bit of a taste of a drop shadow. And now we're going to add a tagline, so we can use Britannic bold font or something similar. It's entirely up to you. So what I'm going to do is go and get my text and just start writing. Popcorn mini bites, cute and cute and tasty treat. Hit enter, and you can see I'm way off the page now because I think it has defaulted to being center. Yeah, so it has defaulted on the center. So I'm just using my properties now. Bring that back in here. And I'm going to resize my top line here just to match the bottom line in size. More or less. Pretty good. Pretty good. Hit enter. And now I can choose my advanced tab, get my character thing here, dialog box, and choose the sizing and just bring that a little closer, so that now I can go and use my move tool and just use the down arrows to give this enough space. Drop shadows, layer mask, remove letter O. So I think we're doing pretty good. However, I don't like the shadow on this guy here. I think I might have to go back in and fix him. And also I don't really like that drop shadow that I made. So I'm going to double click, get that drop shadow, and just make this a whole lot darker. Just so it feels a little more less colorful. Just doesn't take away from our poster. There we go. And you can start to see. So what? Yeah. So I'm getting ahead of myself. So we're good for that sizing and masking and placing the logo and text. What you could do with our lettering is add in a little bit more flavor. I'm gonna go get my color picker and just choose. You can see how, I mean, the color difference here is actually quite a bit. The great thing about the color picker is that it gives you the sort of the current and the previously selected one. So it gives you a really great side-by-side example. So I think this will make all the difference, just that little bit. I'm going to go and get that hex code, copy it, open up that popcorn logo, and choose my color fill and replace it with that. And you can see what a big difference that is as far as it not being just a pure white anymore. Save and close, and now we have just a bit nicer of an image, and I'm going to do the same for my text. So again, as soon as you select that layer, you go to their properties panel and you can change the color right away. Alright, maybe to give this a bit more, yeah, I think we're doing pretty good here. Don't forget to save. I don't think I've saved it. No, I haven't saved it once. So as soon as I hit Command or Control S, it comes up with the save dialog box. Make sure you save and actually create a file on your hard drive in case the power goes out or your computer decides to melt. You will have that, at least hopefully. Okay, so we're getting there. We're on to the last chapter. Chapter 6, finalizing the image. So we'll add textures, gradients, vignettes. We'll play with blend modes and opacity and effects. Add contrast to focal points. So that's very important as far as compositing. And then we'll finish with an overall image adjustment using gradient map, LUT or lookup table or plugin that you can find online. I think today we'll just stick with basic gradient map, and then of course we need to export. So what I want to do right away is just make sure that this guy's sitting in the background a little nicer. So you can see here we have this awful shadow looking thing here, but maybe that's because my popcorn layer is a little bright and we need to fade that out a bit, so darken it up so that we can see our text a little better. So what I'm going to do is go down to the brightness filter that I had, and you can see actually that this brightness filter, now that I have this background layer underneath it, this brightness contrast filter is actually affecting everything below it, and I don't want to do that. So what I want to do is hit Alt or Option with this layer selected, and I hold down Alt or Option and hover between the two, and you'll see my cursor changes. You click that, and now this brightness contrast is locked to this popcorn layer. Okay, so I have my contrast all the way down. Brightness, I'm just going to bring that down too, and you can start to see how much better our text just pops off the page. Alright, and so that works for me. I like that. I might even add a blur, so I'm just going to go select this popcorn layer, and again, as far as a non-destructive workflow, I'm going to again turn this into a smart object so that I can add in a blur that I can go back later on and adjust. So you can start to see how now, as soon as I bring this up just even a little more, just 2 or 3, it really makes our text and our foreground really bounce, really pop. And I like that. That makes me happy. Alright, so we're starting to get there. We're looking pretty good. What I wanted to do was underneath my popcorn logo is add an overall, so I'm going to select the layer below it, and I'm going to go to Layer, New, Adjustment Layer, and I'm going to, let's go with, I will go with brightness contrast just to keep it simple. Click OK. So now you can see it's added a full brightness contrast, and I can just bring this way down and maybe the contrast up even more. But what I want to do is create a vignette. So I have my layer mask selected. I'm going to go up to my elliptical marquee tool, and just from the top corner to the bottom corner, create an ellipse. And now what I want to do is blur that ellipse. So I'm going to go up to my select, go down to modify and feather, and then it gives you the options. So I'm going to base it, this all is based on the size of your image. So I know this is 1000 by 1300, and I want to go ahead and maybe go with 50, and we'll see how that looks. And now I'm going to, because I have my layer mask selected, go Edit, Fill, and it's defaulting to black. And now you can see we have a nice soft, if I deselect this, a nice soft vignette. And I can always bring this on top of my all of my layers if I want to. See how that looks? Or just bring it down and put it on the popcorn. And then of course you can play with blend modes. So maybe we go down to multiply. That's starting to look really good. It's actually starting to affect that bottom layer. And now of course I'm going to dial that way back, bring it way back, and until you start to almost not be able to see it. But as soon as you pop the eyeball on and off, you can start to see how that feels good. Alright, so I think we're getting there. What else do we want to do? Add contrast to focal points. So what I do here, just like I painted on the box of the dog, create a new layer and paint black in soft light at 15%. And what that's going to do is give us a little more contrast. Maybe bring bring this back a little bit so it's not so bright here, and we can just sort of darken up our edges of our dog. But I like to do that right on top of this layer. So just add a new layer, call it contrast brush, contrast puppy brush, sure. And so I get my brush, I get black on my foreground color, bring that opacity way down, 10 or 15%, and change my blend mode to soft light. And what this will do is, if you can't see your brush, if it just goes to this target rectangle, hit the caps lock button and you'll get your brush size back. So I want to leave that down low, and this should work. So now I'm just going to brush just a little bit, give it a little more contrast. And what I want to do actually is hold down Control or Command and click the layer thumbnail of my puppy. So now I know that I'm not actually going to paint outside of him. So now I can be a little more free. I can increase the size of my brush and just sort of create some sort of, you know, nice soft shadows so that we get a bit of contrast sitting on the top there, and we can tone down that big bright area there. I can also go to my color dodge and change it to white, obviously, and brighten this guy's face up a little more so that it matches our foreground. Go back to my soft light, go back to my black. Just so we get some nice contrast. And I think we're doing pretty good. Our last thing to do is to tie our image together. This is actually a really important part of doing compositing. When you have all these layers, all these different colors, all trying to compete with each other, all brought in from different files, what we want to do is add right at the top. So select your top layer, and we want to add in something that ties our image together. And what we can do here is go up to Adjustments And right down in the bottom right hand corner is a gradient map. So if we click on that once, you'll see it defaults to a black and white. So obviously our image is now black and white. Obviously that's not what we want. So if we click on that gradient there, we come up with our gradients and we default to these kind of nasty guys here. And if you find this nice tiny little cog, click on that. It will give you all kinds of options. We can go with photographic toning, color harmonies, special effects, all kinds of options. I highly recommend you go through a bunch of those, but I'm going to go with photographic toning, and you can either add to your current list or just replace it. I'm just going to replace it, and now you can see we get all kinds of beautiful gradient maps that work wonders, tying in our image together, and really just settle on the one that you feel works the best for you. And of course these are really super strong right now, but we will of course be toning them down. And I like this one here, Cobalt Iron #1. And so we click OK, and of course we play with our blend modes. So you could go to soft light. So once you have these blend modes selected, just hit the right and left arrow buttons and see, and you can just cycle through them all and see how they all work together. And if nothing is working here, which often it isn't with this kind of thing, just, wow, there's some craziness going on. Just go back to normal and use your opacity to bring that back down to earth a little bit. Alright, so you can see our original and our final. And again, adding these kinds of filters up at the top, I'm going to go adjustment. I'm going to add a curves just to show you guys our curves. So that's this little tiny guy in the middle here. Click on curves and let's look at what our options are. You have this line going from left to right. We can just click and drag these and see how it works. Or you can go up to the presets and you could go color process, you could go color negative, which is just insane. Increase contrast just a little bit, and you can see how that really punches it up. But of course we can take down our blend mode or our opacity of that curve, and you can start to see how much better our image looks. Don't forget to save it and export. So what we want to do is export our high quality and low quality. So high quality is basically just a save as, right? And save as, you can save it as a JPEG, or if you're going super high end, go with TIFF. If we want a low quality, go File, Export, Quick Export as PNG, or better yet, go to Export As, because then we get our dialog box and it gives you a little more information. Format PNG, we don't need transparency. We can go with a smaller file, so it'll stick with an 8-bit color depth. You can resize it here, which is great. You can add in or keep or get rid of your metadata, and convert to sRGB, which is basically our internet standard, or you can embed a color profile, which again will add in more bytes to your image, and we're going to export it. Popcorn comping PNG, save, and you're good, and you're golden, and you're done. There you go. That's your introduction to Photoshop. Thank you, and we will talk to you soon.